Chris, any positive injury news ahead of this game?
Yeah, McAtee's back for us. Good to have him back, an option for us.
And when you have sort of just so few games left, how much do you maybe want to risk players if they're sort of possibly coming back, in a different circumstance, they might well come back?
Yeah, there is that discussions with the medical team. We have to be careful. Players are wanting to get back. Rian wants to get back. Reece Norrington-Davies wants to get back out there. Tom Davies wants to get back out there. But I think we have to be sensible with it as well, because their main focus now should be a really strong pre-season, which is a real focus of mine as well. In terms of everything, in terms of the load, in terms of how that looks, what we need to get out of that pre-season, and obviously the biggest thing is players being available, being healthy, being fit, and obviously new players coming into that group.
You said after the last game that you quite like this time of the season because you can be a little bit more honest. What do you learn as a manager at a time like this about a team, do you think?
I think you're learning all the time about your players, good and bad, and obviously it's been a disappointing, painful experience for everybody. So we can't get away from that. But yeah, we're always learning. Of course, this is you're down to the nitty gritty decisions that have to be made, and I've had enough experience of it. Over 1,000 games and 250 here at Sheffield United. So. It is amazing because decisions that I have to make at home I'm pretty passive with and let other people get on with, but at the club it's down to me, and obviously in conjunction with the CEO and the coaches and the board as well. We've got to make some tough decisions this end of the season. That's part and part of the game. If I don't make those decisions, then the club will suffer. So every decision that I make is one that will hopefully aid and benefit the biggest organisation, which is the football club.
Do you have great clarity on what you want to do, or are you still assessing at this point?
No, I've got great clarity. I've had it for quite a while. I said in a previous interview, Rob, if players start to turn up with 4, 5 and 6 games to go, I'm saying, where were you for the last 25 games? If I'm totally honest about that, it's quite a harsh way of looking at it, but I think it's an honest and correct way of looking about it. I think, as you know, and sometimes to my detriment, really, that I am too honest and open about views at times, and maybe I should keep my counsel, but that's the way I roll, and I think this is an honest, down to earth football club, and that's the way I see us going about our business. So that's these decisions have been made, tough decisions, some easy decisions as well, but all for the benefit of the football club.
And as much as you want to finish the season well, are you also looking forward to getting on with this now?
I'm getting on with it now. I'm meeting players. I'm speaking to agents. We're heavily in discussions with targets. We're speaking to players that might not be on the next part of the journey here, and to their agents as well, because there's a lot of moving parts in that. Rob, there's players that are out of contract. There's players that are in contract that maybe not be part of that journey. There's options to be taken up. There's young players to talk to, so yeah, we're heavily engrossed in it, and we have been for quite a while. But really now it does step up. We have 3 really incredibly important games, and I think you get to a situation, and listen, it is a poor season, and we'll all own that, me included, and we don't like what that looks like, but. To get into this position, as I've said before, personally, coaches-wise, we've had to win and win quite consistently to get into the positions that we're all in. So the attitude towards every single training session, towards every single meeting, towards every single game between now and the end of the season is just as much in terms of focus and organisation and preparation as it is for the previous 35. We've got a massive obligation to our supporters to go out on high and give them something for the summer to hang on to, because they've had nothing to hang on to this season really, or very few moments. So we have two massive home games, two fabulous home games. I think we all understand the connection and the rivalry between ourselves and Forest recently, and going back a long time. We all understand that, on and off the pitch as well. I think this stuff, and then an away day at Everton. So 3 big games for us. So my attitude, my preparation, giving the players the best opportunity of getting a result will be there, as it has been since we've walked through the door, and it will be right to the end. So there won't be any sort of on the beach unless the players produce on the beach performances. But there won't be that from the coaching staff, won't be that from me. We're desperate to finish with points and performances, so we'll continue in that vein.
What's required in this game to get a result and beat Forest, do you think?
Well, they've got good threats at the top of the pitch. We obviously know Morgan very well. They had an outstanding loan period here. Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood. They've got some good players at the top of the pitch. It's obviously a heavily invested group that shows as well the difficulties, even though obviously they've had the points total deductions as well. But it's a very heavily stacked in quality and experience from their playing squad, and an outstanding manager that we've been involved in and come into contact with quite a number of times, who is a really well respected guy who goes about it the right way. He's had fabulous success at Wolverhampton Wanderers, getting obviously in our first year back in the Championship, a couple of games against them, and the way they won the league in style, and the way they stepped into the Premier League and went into Europe as well. So I know obviously the Tottenham job didn't go as well as it would have possibly have liked it to, but it hasn't gone well for numerous managers. But he's an outstanding manager and a good guy, and they're a really strong squad. So we have to be at our best offensively and defensively. At times I'm still scratching my head even now over the last 2 games. How we've not been 3-0 up at half time in both games. So there's positives to take on it. But still, there's a lot of negatives in there as well in terms of our leadership and our defensive situation and our attitude to defending as well, and obviously our mentality as well. So we're going to have to be at our very best on Saturday to get a result. It is a big game. Bramall Lane will take care of itself. I've told the players, don't worry about that. That there will be a really positive crowd. And an atmosphere and an environment on Saturday afternoon, and really they shouldn't be because of the performances and results, but they will be because you understand more than anything what this game means to everybody.
You mentioned a little while ago there about talking to agents and contracts, and there's options. Are you in a position to discuss who has an option on their contract that you might be taking up?
Well, obviously we talked about Ben Osborne, and we're taking up his option, but there's another 3 or 4 that I'm sure come next week. I've got a Zoom call meeting with the owner and the board tonight, so we'll cement that in terms of the options that are being taken up. So that'll come out through the club after the weekend. So and obviously that gives a little bit more clarity to those players and obviously to myself.
Yeah, and apologies, I know this comes up a lot, but is there any update on Jebison's contract situation?
Well, he's another one. We've offered a really strong contract to him. The vibe, as I've said right the way through, has been positive between myself, the family, and Dan. We feel it's his best place for him to play his football. But until we get that signature on the contract, we just have to keep ploughing on and keep moving forward. But it's another thing that hopefully we can sign off in the next 48, 72 hours.
The final thing I wanted to ask you about was there's been this suggestion that there could be squad spending caps in the Premier League going forward. Do you think that would be a good idea or not?
Well, I've been part of both really, in terms of, when I first managed, we had a really good budget, and we had arguably the strongest squad that when I first managed. So I was pretty happy to deal with that, and I think most managers would like that opportunity of going and signing the best players. But I've seen clubs that overspend and go reckless and pay the price. So is there a sweet spot in between? Hopefully there is. You don't want to stop the ambitious clubs and for them to go for it. But there has to be some sort of control over that, Rob, because we all understand the likes of Bury going out of business, which is absolutely ridiculous. Over 120 years of professional football, winning the FA Cup, and they go out of business, completely bust. It's ridiculous. So there has to be some control over something, and maybe there's a sweet spot somewhere in between. But it still is, as we all understand. You see in every division, usually the teams that invest the most are the teams at the top of the division. Whether it's the Premier League or League Two, you might get some teams that ridiculously overachieve. You might get some teams that really underachieve, but really it sort of balances itself out in the end. And hopefully from my point of view, we'll set the tone in terms of our campaign in the Championship. And we'll have a strong budget, and that'll give us an opportunity to hopefully, get back into the Premier League.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, Rob.
Cheers.
Hi, Damo.
Morning. Obviously, relegation affects everybody, but we know your connection with the club going back years. How have you taken it personally? The confirmation that you're going to be playing in the Championship next season.
Yeah, it's incredibly disappointing. So I'm not taking it lightly, and not taking it, flippantly as well. Like, oh, it's just happened. Let's get on with it. I think there is a feeling amongst the players that even though we were in a difficult position, we tried to get out of it, and at times we tried to do our best. The inevitable, I think, especially over maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks, was going to happen when we couple of draws that we should have maybe turned into wins. I think you look at Burnley's sort of recent track record over sort of the last 7 or 8 games. I would say our performances have been similar. The difference is they've been able to turn their performances into points, from losses into draws and draws into wins, and we haven't done the same. As I said, I'm scratching my head. How we get beat at home to Burnley at 4-1, and we get beat 5-1 at Newcastle, because for long parts of that game, we were well in it, and we created chances, and really should have been a little bit more clinical. Then that would have possibly given us an opportunity to go into the last 3 games. But I think after the Brentford game, when we got beat, I think there was maybe a recognition from everybody that this is going to be a real tough ask. Obviously, the Burnley result goes against us. We have the Man United result, and then obviously the final part of that demo was last Saturday over at Newcastle. So yeah, we weren't singing and dancing on the bus on the way home, but still we have to dust ourselves down pretty quickly, because there's an awful amount of work to go into getting us right for next year. So that's my focus. It has been for a while, not taking my eye off the ball of us trying to get results and wins in the Premier League, but knowing that we have to be ready, because it's going to be a really difficult summer. There's a lot of work to be done, ins and outs, and other stuff as well, to hopefully put us back in that position of where we want to be.
And in terms of team selection for the weekend and for the rest of the season, do you have a bit of a balancing act in terms of staying true to the competition, but also maybe giving the young lads a go?
Well, we've given enough a go so far in the Sula and Brooks and Arblaster, so there might be a couple others that you might see names on team sheets, and oh, that's interesting. Obviously, Louis Marsh was on the team sheet at Newcastle, a young boy that's come through our academy. I'm not going to carry on harping on about the academy as I have done. It's there, and we've talked about it enough. So there might be a couple that come into the situation and into the group. So that'll be good for them. Good experience to know what a first team match day looks like, and the lead up to first team duties looks like. So there might be a couple of them, but there won't be wholesale changes. There won't be gambles. There won't be trying out different bits and pieces. We need to get results. We need to get performances out there. We need to get results first and foremost for us, and the competition will take care of itself.
Any more news on McBurney? There was a suggestion he might be coming back sooner than
Yeah, if we get, I think he's delighted that the second opinion has sort of give him a little bit of hope to maybe take part in the last game of the season. So we're monitoring that. But as I've just answered with Rob there, we have to be really careful and get the balance right, because there's no good, us rushing somebody back, then breaking down in that last game of the season and missing pre-season, because, like I've said to you, this is going to be an incredibly, possibly one of the most important pre-seasons this club's had for maybe 8, 9, 10 years.